What's going on, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. Welcome to Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Before we get into this is the last week for JW Storytelling's Kickstarter. Let's check it out now. Hey everyone, Nick here. Wanted to show you real quick the Legend of Kyyden prologue from friend of the show, Jesse Wolf. He's got a Kickstarter going on from now until July 5th, and I wanted to show you guys some of the cool stuff they're doing over there, featuring a 24-page standard-sized comic book about a kingdom under siege. We got this amazing cover A. We have a cool hero-villain spotlight over on the cover B, and then all those guys that love those villain shots, we also have a cardstock cover C available as well. But guys, go down below. Like I said, I'll have a link down here to the Kickstarter campaign. You can check out some of the interior art, read the synopsis. Seems like it's gonna be a really cool story. I'm excited for backing this one and support our team, Jesse, Noah, and Camillo. But guys, thanks so much. Good luck with your campaign and keep making awesome comics. All right, welcome back. So let's get into the books I read this week. And you know how this works. I'm gonna go ahead and put my grading scale up. And as I introduce a book, I'm gonna put the cover of that book on the grading scale so you can see how they all stack up against each other. With that said, let's go into the big two as we always do, starting with Detective Comics 1073. I'm losing track of the numbers. This is getting so high up there. Guys, Ron B is absolutely killing it on Detective Comics. It's a very interesting thing. I was actually listening to an interview with Klaus Jensen on Cartoonist Kayfabe, and he was talking about one of the disadvantages of comic books is that we don't have like an auditory sense of it. Like we don't have that soundtrack. We don't have those sound effects. We don't have any of that kind of stuff. And of course, there's exceptions. And this book is definitely one of those exceptions because when I read Detective Comics, I can hear background music. I swear to God, I could feel like the suspensefulness, like this weird suspense music building and building and building. I can hear the explosions. I can hear the people talking. It's a very weird experience reading this. Ram is just such a great storyteller, and the art is spectacular in this book. I cannot believe some of the things that we get to see inside of here, the character design, the coloring, the line work, everything about this book is absolutely gorgeous to just take in. It's a phenomenal read. It's a really interesting, compelling story as well. It's this big takeover of Gotham. We have this very ancient family coming back in, manipulating people the way that they always have in previous runs. But there's this weird backstory, this intense, long-standing lore behind this family as well. That do I completely understand everything about this family and where they come from and the buildup leading to this moment? No, but do I care? Absolutely not. It's a fantastic read. You got to be checking out Detective Comics. It's just remarkable. One of the best books out there. Check it out. The next book we read from DC was Greg Pak on City Boy issue number 2 from Dawn of DC. City Boy was an interesting character, very cool concept. Basically, this kid fell into some experiments some bad guys were doing. They were trying to like uncover the power of the city. The city is kind of a living, breathing entity, and they realized that. They found a way to extract that power out and harness it, and this kid kind of got wrapped up into it like a Dr. Manhattan or like a Spider-Man kind of a thing, just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, absorbed his power, and now we're understanding what his power set is. He can essentially speak to the city. It kind of speaks back to him. He's using his powers to find things like, hey, there's a missing watch that somebody lost, and he can kind of talk to the city, and the city can lay down blueprints to where the watch is, things like that. But there's much more to this power set that we explore in this issue, which is really cool. There's like a beast, almost like an avatar that's underneath just dying to get out. And there's some very powerful DC villains that are trying to utilize this power as well and trying to take it back from him. But this kid's new to having this power, you know what I mean? So he goes a little bit overboard. He kind of overcompensates. He's really angry. These people are after him, trying to steal his power from him. And he goes a little bit too far, and we get a very familiar face stepping in towards the end, which got me really excited to see, like, you know, how is he going to neutralize this? I'll let you read and figure out who I'm talking about here. But City Boy has been an interesting read. You know, if you like new people getting new powers, things you haven't seen before, you might enjoy this book. Art's really spectacular too. A lot of cool things you can do with this power set. So check out City Boy. It's not been a bad read so far. Then we have Joshua Williamson over on Green Arrow issue number 3. I will say, like, if you're a big Green Arrow fan, if you're into Arsenal, and if you like Canary, and you like Connor Hawke, and you like all that kind of stuff, if you like that pocket of DC, you're really going to enjoy this book, I think. It's actually pretty cool what's going on, and it's tying into the broader Dawn of DC stuff with, like, Peacemaker and Amanda Waller and the Suicide Squad and what that whole thing is doing right now. So I think you're going to really enjoy it if you're a big fan of that family anyways. If you're not a fan of that family, or you don't have a lot of experience like myself in that like whole Green Arrow family, you might be a little bit lost, but I still think you're going to enjoy what's happening in here. Just like forget all the things that you might need to know to make everything make sense and just enjoy the ride. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. It's a really fun read. The artwork is really cool. There's a lot of comedic moments in here, a lot of powerful moments. You can really tell these characters are all connected. They really care for each other. And because of how much they care for each other, there's this big event that is coming that leads to this mass destruction, which is a pretty cool idea. So, do I know everything that's going on? Absolutely not. If you're a long-term fan, I think you're going to dig this book. In any case, check out Green Arrow. It's actually been pretty good. All right, jumping over to some independent books. No Marvel books on the poll this week, but we're going to go into some indies right now. Vanish, issue number 8, Ryan Stegman, Donny Cates, and some other folks credited as well, depending on what page you're on for inks and pencils and whatnot. So this is kind of the wrap up, as far as I'm aware, of the big first arc. And so overall, I would say there's a lot of cool concepts in here. If you like magic wielding factions, different people at war with each other, big dark rivalries, things like that, high violence, high gore. If you like that Image 90s feel, you're going to dig Vanish. I think it's really interesting. I will say they painted such a cool, unique world that I want to know more about the world. I want to know more about what it was like back in the day. And this book right here kind of goes into the perspective of this certain character, this anti-hero who's coming up, still trying to figure out like what exactly is going on with his powers. How has this evil come back? What does it look like nowadays? Did it kind of change its face a little bit? And then how do you deal with this rivalry that goes back way back when they were kids, and now it's back to essentially take over the world or whatever, and so we're trying to battle through all that. The artwork is incredible in here, the coloring is great, the line work is great. If you like those high action image books from back in the day, you're going to dig this one. It's like the natural evolution of that stuff into the 2020s, so it definitely has that going for it, and it definitely has like a Soul Reaper. Guys, remember Soul Reaper on the PlayStation back in the day? I swear that guy's the guy from Soul Reaper. But anyways, very cool thing. I think it's a trade read for sure. It's definitely a book that I want to go back and reread because I had such a good time learning about this world and these characters in the early issues. I got lost a little bit along the way about like, you know, all these people started really young and that's where we started the story. Then they were all aged up and then everybody changed and everybody has a new name and they come from a different place and people that were dead were not really dead and things like that. So when you have all those changes, I kind of lose track of the narrative a little bit, but it's something I want to revisit for sure. It's only 8 issues. I can probably knock it out in a day or two just while sitting around, but artwork is incredible. There's a couple killer issues that I loved through this series, like issue number 6, I think it was, something like that. But now that we have it wrapped up a little bit more, I want to revisit it. What do you guys think now that it's over? Let me know down below. World Tree issue number 3. We have the classic team right here. James Tynan, we have Blanco, we have Jordi Belair and Aditya Bidikar over on here. So very cool, very classic 3rd issue setup. We're going to get a little bit more about what the undernet is in here. We get a little bit more about what's at stake if you're exposed to that undernet, but we still don't exactly know who our character is, this female character that we were introduced to very shockingly in the 1st issue. She's actually been in all the other issues leading up to this. We don't exactly know like the end game, but we do get a little bit of a narration dump in here. So if you're confused about what exactly the undernet is, it does go into that a little bit. We get introduced to more characters seemingly on the side of trying to take the undernet down once again, because there was a team that tried to do this back in the day, but it has resurfaced for some reason, and we're trying to uncover that right now. It is a very interesting book. I will say that if you're into kind of like sci-fi or technological sci-fi kind of books with a little bit of a horror tint to it, I think you're going to really like this book. And I'm curious to know, for those who got it, did you actually go to this website, put this passcode in, and did it work for you? Because it's not working for me, and I don't exactly know what is going on there. Maybe there's something I'm not understanding. But World Tree, if you've been digging it so far, it's more of the same, just with more explaining of what's going on, a little bit more exposition. So to get us caught up in a classic 3rd issue fashion, let me know what you guys thought. Indigo Children issue number 4. What a great series this has been so far. Probably my least favorite issue of the 4 issues leading up into this, but it's still a heck of an issue. A little bit of backstory here about certain characters. We're hunting down the American right now, if I'm not mistaken, and so that person has a very cool power set, basically can blend right in, can become invisible, become the ghost. And so I thought that was really interesting, really cool. So we have our team, we're building, and we have a moment in here where we're actually attacked by some agency, and it's really neat to see all the different members of the Indigo Children stepping up, displaying their powers in really creative ways, teaming up, kind of like the X-Men would or something like that, just really taking advantage of their different power sets to take on a common threat. So it was really cool to see all that stuff kind of come to fruition here. But yeah, I'm certainly digging this book more and more. But again, this one was a little bit, I wouldn't say slower, but maybe a little bit less shocking than the previous issues, but it still had plenty of action in here. And again, in the epilogue, we get a little tease about maybe another agency or something like that that's actually coming to stop our Indigo Children. Still an amazing read. If you haven't checked this one out, I highly recommend it. And let me know if you're reading it down below. Christopher Chaos, issue number 1, another James Tynion book, this time coming over from Dark Horse with this wraparound glossy cover right here, kind of like a cardstock feel. Pretty interesting thing. Christopher Chaos is an interesting character. He's just kind of a boy walking around with these different power sets right now. And, it's kind of hard to understand exactly what his power set is, but he can basically see the world differently. There's a scene in here where he's at the whiteboard at school and he can see equations all over the place, maybe kind of illustrating he's a genius that can see like another layer of the world, something like that. He can see in another dimension in a way, something like that. There's also some telekinetic powers that are kind of displayed in here. He's kind of a super genius and can perceive things that others can't. And so there we are. So he basically sees himself as an outsider and doesn't exactly know how to cope, how to make friends, how to like live in this world. So I think it's something that we can all pretty much relate to. So it's actually interesting from like a power set perspective. I don't think it's anything super original, but here we are. In this book, we actually learn that he's crushing on like basically this jock guy that's in school, and he sees him running away from some kind of a threat in some mysterious way up into the woods, and kind of witnesses this brutal attack and this transformation that this classmate goes through in here. And so he's pushed further and further into this isolation that he's in right now, leading him to some pretty desperate things, some desperate experiments, which end up, I would imagine, eventually changing the course of his life and the people around him. So we get a little bit of a mad scientist thing happening towards the end of this book too. So if you like loner, isolated, misunderstood, high school kind of characters that deal with relationship dramas and family dramas and adopting new powers and things like that, you might want to check out Christopher Chaos. Let me know if you did. David Hazan over on Monomyth issue number 2. So this one I think came out last week, but we just got our copies in from Mad Cave Studio. Pretty cool issue number 1. It was basically all these different people were brought in across the world to this mysterious mansion kind of a thing from by this old sorcerer, kind of like on his last leg, telling them that, hey, you guys will all grow up eventually, become these powerful sorcerers, and this is kind of like your trial right here. This is me bringing you into this world so you can kind of understand the rules and be prepared for this type of lifestyle. And they all take it different ways. Some of them take it for face value, some of them argue, things like that. And this issue here is pretty much all about those people that were brought together exploring this mansion that they're in. But this mansion, kind of like a Hogwarts kind of a thing, has a mystical power behind it and reveals to these people individually like their deepest, darkest fears, things like that. I will say that thing got a little bit repetitive because it hits every single person. So we spend a couple of pages on all the different people. There's like 5 or 6 involved in the story. We get to see like their deepest, darkest secrets, things like that. And it just kind of becomes repetitive over time. But I mean, it's obviously impactful and meaningful for the characters in here. And they all team up to rebel against this house and try to get out alive. So it started in this, hey, you're a wizard, Harry, kind of a thing, but all of a sudden they're trying to survive and just trying to make it out of this castle alive. And they're trying to understand why they're still there and what the next steps are, things like that. A lot of mystery still, don't exactly know what's going on. 3rd issue's coming out. I'm sure we're going to get some explanations very soon. Are you guys reading Monomyth, and what are you thinking about it? TMNT and Usagi Yojimbo issue number 4 IDW. Stan Sakai is on here with that wraparound cover. Loving these. So glad that he's doing these. Eastman's doing some covers too. I've been collecting both of them, but I like the Stan Sakai ones a little bit more in here. We actually had our big opening battle in our previous issue. This is kind of like the repercussions of that and a little continuation of where we're going to go from here with this big metallic robot army from Dr. Nowhere, I think his name is, if I'm not mistaken. He's actually evaded the turtles, went back into Usagi's world, and is basically taking over that world right now. So the turtles are teaming back up with Usagi Yojimbo and the army to take on that threat once again. But we get some pretty cool robot antagonists, things like that inside of this issue. It's beautifully colored, beautifully drawn. If you're familiar with Stan Sakai's artwork and just color palette, things like that, it's very simplistic. It has a childish look to it, but the subject matter is actually pretty adult, and there's like death and things like that. But it's not done in a gory kind of a way. It's done in a real tasteful way. So it's appropriate for kids, appropriate for YA, things like that, in my opinion. But you might want to take a look at it and just don't make that assumption if you're a parent out there. But if you're an adult, it definitely has some high stakes, lots of action, tons of great artwork. I really recommend this book. It's been a treat so far. Definitely pick it up. TMNT, The Last Ronin Lost Years. This is issue number 4, cover B, Kevin Eastman. I love that he does these really nostalgic looking turtle covers because the original Mirage run, you know, they didn't utilize the space up here, and they had a little bit of a wraparound effect to those early covers. So super excited that he's still doing that kind of stuff in here. If you like The Last Ronin, the previous volume, I think you're really going to dig this one. It's kind of a prequel to that. We have our last turtle going from place to place, trying to take on this evil organization that is basically corrupting this part of the world that he's in right now. And he's making different friends and different enemies and things like that along the way. But like tragedy always seems to be right one step behind him. And this one is no exception. He finds himself in this camp right now where they basically have these death matches with all the prisoners. And it's like a Suicide Squad kind of a thing too, where they have this implanted device that if they don't follow the rules, or they try to escape, they push a button and they end up dying. So they're in this situation where they have this mutant camp and this human camp. And eventually when they work themselves down to one in each camp, they got to fight each other. This is the story of all of that right there. So our turtle makes a friend, of course. And then at the end of this book, him and that friend actually have to duke it out to the death. And we get to see exactly what that means for our turtles here. Lots of emotion, lots of cool action in here as well. Every issue seems to be kind of like a standalone issue, but all building towards the same resolution, which is fine. Of course, we get our hallucinations of our other turtle brothers in there as well. So that's a cool little thing that they do inside of here. Lost Years has been pretty cool. So let me know if you guys are reading it and what you guys thought. Then we're going to go over into Fantagraphics with Ed Piskor's Red Room Crypto Killers issue number 2. My God, this is like the most brutal book I've ever read. It's actually incredible. The artwork. So Ed is a master at just this brutal artwork. It's like, what could I even show you in here? I think I can show you this scene right here. It's got this duotone effect to it, which is awesome. It's pretty much black and white, the entire thing. Extremely gory, extremely gruesome, but you can really spend the entire time just really going through and just looking at the line work and looking at the inking and everything. It's incredible, man. He's just doing such a good job with the quality of the artistry inside the book. The story is really cool too. It's basically about this guy this influencer for cryptocurrency was like, buy this one and buy that one, and now that one's in the dump, and spend all your money over here and spend all your money over there. And like the effect that message has on people that follow him and listen to them, because you could be super rich and then dump all your money in a certain currency, and then all of a sudden it's worth nothing the next day, and you can lose everything, right? You can lose your family, your wife, your kids, things like that. And is that kind of a thing that's going to push you over the edge to take out this influencer that you saw on his own channel? So it's like, dude, it's incredible. It's very, very gruesome, step-by-step, methodical, like torture almost. It's like, it's super in depth, man. It's gruesome. So if you're not into that kind of stuff, if you don't know this world of comics exists, it exists. And if you want a taste of it, it's inside of this book right here, banned in 26 countries. So, you know, there's a reason for that, but it's a heck of a ride, man. It's very, very well drawn. The stories are all one-off stories as well. So you can jump into this issue. You're going to be totally fine. This is volume number 3. The next issue that comes out is actually featuring on the back end some of the daily artwork that Ed Piskor is putting out. It's going to be like the first appearance of that stuff. So somewhat of a key. Check that one out as well. Crypto Killers issue number 3 coming out in about a month. So put on your pull list now if you got the stomach for it. But guys, that's all I read this week, and those were my thoughts. Please go down below. Let me know what you got, what your favorite books of the week were. And while you're down there, check out JW Storytelling's Kickstarter. Links are down there as well. But as always, we appreciate you watching the video. Like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be alerted when I put out a new video. I'll see y'all down below in the comments.